That's pretty cool. What's going on, Rolls? Wait, my audio coming okay? Hold on, I didn't even check my mic. Microphone. Oh yeah, it's coming in okay. Cool. Excellent. I see my wave bar. What's going on, buddy? How you been? Long time no see. Oh man, that's a really cool. I'm playing around with some effects here. Let's see. Basic portrait. Look at that. Just like emoji hands. How does that work? Oh. Oh man. Invisible. That's weird. 8-bit. No. Sketchy. Doing some aha. Take on me. Oh, come on. They add all sorts of stuff on this. That's kind of cool. No, I'm going to keep it on none. Actually, I like the mute background. I kind of like that. That's kind of neat. So the background's all like not very colorful. Kind of weird. Gotta get that coffee in. Oh. How you been, man? How's your November been treating you? We're 2 weeks into November already. The 15th already. Thanksgiving next week, right? Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy that next week is a week from tomorrow is already Thanksgiving. Everyone complains that like, oh, it's too early for Christmas stuff, but yet here we are. Here we are 15 days in, and you know, it hasn't felt that heavy. A cruise, huh? Man, more power to you, brother. I am 100% not a cruise guy. I know for a fact I'm not a cruise guy. I would drive me crazy. I'm the type of guy that, like, when I travel, I like to get lost in the city. It's one of my favorite things. Every time when I go to Boston, for example, for PAX, I'm always there a day early. I get there on Wednesday. I fly in on Wednesday, and then my first thing I do is I go get a lobster roll for myself, and then I go check into the hotel. And then after that, I usually go in like I want to go out in the city, like, and do something, and rolls. You know, that's interesting. It's been 20 years with, and I think I've talked to a few people that have been, and like every time they go, like one of them that went recently got like food poisoning, and it like just spread all over the ship, and it was just kind of a miserable time. So I know that can happen. I know that's not a common occurrence, but it is a thing. So that's crazy. That just drives me crazy. Like, you're kind of contained on this boat. Like, if I'd rather just fly somewhere, and like if I want activities, just book a hotel that might have activities. But if you can handle a cruise, go for it, man. I've heard they're pretty good for like budget, like good budget, like vacation. But running around, told myself next vacation is sitting by a beach. Yep, that's good. And I guess a cruise, you could do that, right? You could just sit on the deck and have people bring you drinks. So that's pretty neat. The wife and me need that. Hopefully next year, maybe we'll do something. Not sure yet. Hey, what's going on? We're going to be talking. I'm going to try to change up the format a little bit on the show. I want to talk about everything under the sun, right? Trying to catch up on the news. And the news has been kind of chaotic, right? Like, we've got all sorts of stuff that I could talk about. And that's fine. I can do that, but I think I'm going to be changing it up and just kind of picking a topic that I want to talk about, and then kind of run with it. Because first off, there's a lot to talk about all the time, but at the same time, I think I can focus more on a specific topic if I'm kind of more passionate about it, right? And y'all have heard me rant and rave and whatever else. So I'll probably be doing a little bit of that today. We'll be talking about handhelds in general, handhelds and kind of all the types and where we're at right now, because we've got the Steam Deck OLED going on pre-order tomorrow, I think. And again, I think I might hit a topic you're going to be interested in, especially because kind of the way that I'm going to be approaching the subject, and then we'll go from there. Because I'm in the middle of actually filming a review on this bad boy right here, the ROG Ally. So I'll be touching base on it, kind of sharing my thoughts on something like this. And then my Steam Deck. I wish I had my Steam Deck on with me, but I actually went to a buddy's of mine and I left it there. And then he messaged me on my halfway home and he was like, "Hey, you left your Steam Deck." And I was like, "Dang it, I left it there." So I don't have my Steam Deck to kind of show at the same time. But yeah, let's kick this off, and we'll allow people to hop in, and we'll go from there. Let's kick off this credits. Let's go. Hey everyone, welcome to Mid-Geek Crisis. We are episode, who the hell knows anymore? Episode 224. It doesn't matter. It is the episode that I am airing on November 15th, 2023. Welcome everyone. Welcome anyone. Hello out there, out in internet land. I am here. I am going to be talking about stuff. I'm definitely going to be talking a little news right up front, just kind of catching up on some things, especially some stories about early in the week. Some really funny stuff that I think has come out. And I'm intrigued by it, but I'm not going to take up most of the show because most of the show will be talking about handhelds and the Steam Deck and others, and kind of the popularity of handhelds right now. We've come full circle. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, because it's interesting to me that we, at one point, almost every major console maker, from Sega to Nintendo to the TurboGrafx, NEC TurboGrafx, there was always like a handheld version, right? So we had the Sega, and we had the Game Gear, and then the Nomad, and then we had the Game Boy, and then the DS, and the went from Game Boy to DS to Game Boy Color to DS to Game Boy Advance, DS, 3DS. We've had multiple iterations of Nintendo. I mean, even Neo Geo had a handheld at one point, right? So we had the Neo Geo Pocket right here, which is a fantastic little handheld, and everyone had a handheld. And Sony, with their PlayStation, they released their PSP, their original PSP, which I do have one, and I didn't grab one off my shelf. So I have a PSP right here, one of many that I have. And I think we like the convenience of putting something in our pocket, and gaming, right? And then gaming kind of shifted with the revolution of the smartphone. All of a sudden, people were saying that these devices, these handhelds, were redundant. We didn't need these anymore. We wanted smartphone gaming was the future of handheld gaming. Pocket gaming was going to be in our phones. And then sadly enough, I think we marketing, publishers, developers, greed ruined that, right? I think we as a gaming society wanted one thing, and money dictated that we should have something else. And what I mean by that is smartphones. I'll just use an old iPhone here. Uh, right? Yeah, um, that's a good example right there. Uh, I think what's interesting about that is I think the perception was that tablets were going to take over. Apple in general actually never really wanted the iPad to take over, which is the reason why the iPad is still missing certain features that everyone wants. But Apple's like, no, we don't want to give them to you because it's not a laptop. Quit trying to use it as a laptop. It can be a productivity tool, but it's more of a consumption, like a media consumption tool. You could still be creative with them, like they've now added the pen, the pencil, I mean, and you can do all sorts of stuff like that. And you still have a camera on it, but they don't want you to take it out and use it as a camera, right? You're not supposed to have a big old iPad. It's supposed to be like an extension, like you're working on your PC or your computer, and then you move on to your iPad, but it's not a replacement for it. But at one point, the media and kind of the tech conversation was that tablets were going to take over the laptop, and everyone wanted that, and Microsoft ran with that for a while. If anyone out there is watching and remembers, when Windows 8.1 came out, or 8 came out, their whole interface changed, and they really dictated and wanted to go that touch route. So we had a lot of touch style, and then that was the beginning of the Windows Surface era, right? And then we had the Surface RT, and this whole interface was supposed to be very touch friendly, but it wasn't. It was a kind of shoehorned, and Windows wasn't very touch friendly. You were always fighting with the interface. If you ever used Windows on a tablet, as a full touch tablet, it was very not friendly. You would have touch apps tablet mode, and then that same, like if you were in a browser and then you flipped over to desktop mode, it was actually a separate application that would launch. So, well, Internet Explorer tablet mode was a separate, so your tab wouldn't move over. It was just a mess. Nothing worked. There was a lot of the word I'm looking for, skeuomorphism, right? So you had the look of tablet on one, but there was still icons and iconography that was still based in mouse and keyboard. Things still in the operating system weren't switched over. There were a lot of buttons that were old from previous versions of Windows that were still there. Like Windows is such a beast of an operating system that they could never really start from scratch. It was always built on top of the previous one. So it just didn't function as a touch interface. And Mac OS isn't touch based, and that's where iOS comes into play, right? And so iOS put on an iPad became iPad OS, and that evolved because that was already a touch centric operating system. But I digress. That is all kind of reflective of the fact that at one point gaming companies did have handhelds, right? This was the way we were going to go. And then games like Angry Birds and all of that came out, and those were popular and making tons of money. And they came out on these things, and somehow or another, we said that finger and swiping and touching was the way of the future for handheld gaming. And it never caught on, at least not with actual like gamers. It caught on as like your mom and dad or your grandparents playing Candy Crush, or there's a lot of fun. I played some games on here. There's a lot of fun, time consuming games that you can like, let's be honest here. They're games that you play when you're probably sitting on the toilet or you're in bed before going to sleep, and you're like, I'm going to play something real quick, or you're in a waiting room or you're in line. But I can't imagine anyone. I mean, I'm speaking very broad here. I'm pretty sure there are, but I can't imagine there are many individuals out there that are like, I'm going to download this newest touch game and I'm going to put in hours into this game. Because the problem with that is a lot of these games became then in-app purchase games. There was always some sort of like monetization. The game might have been free, but then there was like coins and time and all of these like little micro transactions built into the game that made it not fun for people. I didn't want to have to spend constant money to play this game. The moment you lock me out because I've run out of time is the moment that I'm going to stop playing your game. Right? Like that's pretty much how I've lost interest in a lot of games that have come out for smartphones. The game will come out and it's actually kind of fun. And then like they only allow you to do like 5 turns an hour before you have to either pay money to unlock it or watch some ads or, you know, some sort of like weird thing, how to monetize it. Right. And so that makes me go, you know what? I'm going to close this, and I close it and I never come back to it. Pretty much describe it exactly. So let's fast forward to 2023 here. And here we are. We are in a world of pocket gaming again. And what I mean by that is that I can't even say that it started this year, right? So a perfect example is Nintendo's most popular console, I think, ever at this point now is the Nintendo Switch. And it is their only console. They no longer have a handheld like a 3DS and a system that you plug into your TV. They now have something like this, which is their entire system, right? Like this, the silicon has gotten fast enough that we can put a battery in this and we can play, first party mainline titles on a console that can go in our pocket or our bag. And this isn't really pocketable, but it is a handheld. And then when we get home, we plug it into a dock and we turn on our TV and we sit down and play. We take these controllers off. We put them on a little controller slider, and then we can sit down and play like normal. And that's cool. But you want to go on the go, or you're going to go on a trip, or you're going to want to sit in bed. And now you're back to handheld gaming. So this isn't new. I mean, here we are. We're actually talking about the end of the life cycle of this thing. Like we're expecting a new version of this to be announced very soon. But because of this, and I'm really emphasizing that I think Nintendo really nailed it. And Nintendo tends to be the trendsetter here. I talk about this before. Nintendo is always it's always playing the game at their own. They're playing the game in their own rules, right? Like they don't follow the rules like everyone else. They are trendsetters or trend breakers, or they're the weird kid. They're the weird kid in class that's like wearing suspenders and stuff, and you're like, what's going on? And then a couple of years down the road, all of a sudden everyone's rocking suspenders, and you're like, when was that cool? Well, Nintendo does that. A good example of this is Nintendo and the Nintendo Wii. When the Nintendo Wii, the generation that is a Nintendo Wii, I think it was at the Gen 7, 6. I'm always bad at remembering which generation it was. The Nintendo Wii came out after the GameCube. The GameCube was already kind of a weird, and this is that I'll take even 2 steps back. The N64 was a console that had a controller that was already not the norm, right? It wasn't the normal controller with analog sticks and buttons. It had one analog stick, and it looked like you needed 3 hands to hold it. But it was kind of a revolutionary device because it did have an analog stick, and it allowed you. It gave you the tool that you needed to play in 3D space. And PlayStation, I don't even remember. Like, I don't quote me on this, but PlayStation then later on came in and they released their dual analog stick, right? And that was kind of hold on, sorry about that. There we go. Boom, back to normal color because I'm messing with my colors here. They then released a controller with 2 analog sticks because they're like, yeah, it's a 3D space. Let's release a controller with analog so you can move in and out, left and right. And when they added a second analog stick, that made it so that games could have camera control and normal control, because you had consoles with single analog sticks and with like the N64. But a good example is a game like GoldenEye, right? So GoldenEye is a popular game, but you move around with one, and then you have to use the C buttons to kind of like move, unless you plugged in 2 controllers, which the developers knew you could, and all of a sudden you could use 2 controllers to move around. which was revolutionary in a way, but it was kind of a way to hack the game because you could use two controllers to control one character. Um, Kind of a long roundabout way, but kind of the evolution of gaming in general has been that Nintendo has been a trendsetter. And the next console was the GameCube, and the GameCube had dual analog, but not really. It had it is. You are absolutely right, Rolls. It is used for speed runs. It is a way for them to be able to like do things that you can't normally do. So you're absolutely right. The GameCube had two analog sticks, so it had the single regular, and then they had the C stick, and no longer C buttons, but it was an analog stick, so you could use it as dual analog. It was just smaller and kind of weird, but there we are, two analog sticks on a system, and it already had a controller that was weird. The buttons were shaped differently because they were really emphasizing the way that like A and B were main, and then these upper, X and Y were these like kind of like kidney shaped buttons, and they, it was a different thing, but again, different. Then the Nintendo Wii came out, right? And that was the console that kind of like made everyone a gamer. Everybody's grandmother had, Wii Sports and played, did their bowling and did their tennis and did all of that because it was the console that anyone could pick up and play. And again, a trendsetter. Well, what happened? As soon as the Nintendo Wii came out and you had, motion controls and waggle and all this other stuff, you all of a sudden had you had Xbox and Sony go, we can do that too. And what did they do? So 360 for a very long time really wanted to push the Kinect. So the Microsoft Kinect became kind of a thing that they really shoved down your throat for a very long time. All these games had connectivity. They all wanted to have like some sort of like method to use it. At one point, you could move the interface by moving your fingers across like this, or yelling to your Xbox to stop and turn on and whatever else. And then I remember that there was like certain games like Madden or whatever, you could like yell commands or audibles or whatever, and the microphone would hear you. And then they had dance games where that would read your camera movement and all that, because they made it so that you didn't have to have a stick or something to move around in, but the camera would read all that. But it didn't work out very well. That, a lot of people's living room setups weren't set up for that kind of stuff. It became a novelty. Developers really didn't want to use the Kinect as an add-on for their games, and so it fell to the wayside. But Microsoft kept pushing it up until the next version of the Xbox with their next Kinect bundled with their Xbox, which didn't sell very well at the very beginning because that Kinect was an expensive Kinect and it had cost $100 extra. But my point is Microsoft then tried to do something. Same thing. Sony did it as well during the PlayStation 3 era. They're like, hey, let's we want to do the same thing, so let's make our own Wiimotes. So they had the camera, and then they used these right here. So we had you had this one in one hand, which was kind of like their nunchuck, and then you had the other one, which I have in the other room with my with the VR, and that one you would use, and it had like a glowing ball on the top, and that's how you tracked and did movement and everything else. And it was just a kind of a Wii ripoff, but not really. It was their own thing, but everyone wanted to like do it. Everyone wanted to do what Nintendo was doing. And again, Nintendo trendsetter. So here we are again, back to the present time, and we've now got a console here that is outselling some of the big boys, and it is outselling everybody because this is the console that everyone wants as at least their side console. Whether you're a Microsoft or a Sony fan, most households that are gaming households usually have a Switch and then another one, right? And again, this is just it's kind of the way it is, and it's because this is portable. This is how you play your Zeldas, your Marios, all of that. And this is great, but it is a handheld gaming device. So now, 2 years we've had the Steam Deck, and let's talk about that. Let's get to modern times now, and yeah, no. So that's interesting. That's a good segue there, real quick. Gosh, not go. Yeah, you don't have to plug it in yet. I actually have my Kinect plugged into one of my lab machines back here, and I also have a Kinect for the Xbox One I'm using the drivers, the scientific drivers installed because hobbyists use it for all sorts of stuff. MIT uses it for all sorts of stuff, and 3D printing uses it. You can have a Kinect plugged in, and you can then use it to 3D scan a device and import that device into software because it uses IR blasters to kind of like map, for face tracking and mapping and all that kind of stuff. Another reason that I use it for is on my virtual pinball machine that I've shown before. At the top, I added my Kinect, and when you can have it so that certain tables that you're playing have the Kinect, and what it does is it looks at your face and looks at where you're facing. And when you do that, when you look at the flat TV that is the virtual pinball, when you move your head, the whole field of space on the pinball table will shift. So it gives you depth on the pinball, the pinball screen. So if your buddy's standing next to you over here and looking, it's going to look weird to him because the entire field of vision is actually moving to the player. And so the Kinect is doing that. So it gives you 3D without needing 3D glasses. And it's really cool because you can really kind of tune it. And sure enough, you can, you're sitting there playing and you can kind of tilt your head this way and you'll see the ball go under maybe a bridge or something like that. But it's a TV and it's 3D without glasses. It's weird, but the Kinect can do that. So that's what's really cool. It's a lot of depth of field tracking. So yeah, the Kinect was a great piece of kit. It just, it wasn't what gamers wanted. It's exciting technology, but it's not what gamers wanted. And I think these companies said the same thing about handheld for a while. They said, honest. Yeah, you're right. But the technology is still relevant. The tech that Microsoft invested in it was, again, pretty advanced for the time, but the practicality for video games wasn't really there. It could be used for other things, and other people have used it for other things. So yeah, that's funny how things like that happen, and that happens all the time. A good example is Sony abandoned this for a long time, but the hobby community uses these particular controllers. I forgot what these are called. These are the navigation controllers, what it's called, from Sony, and these are Bluetooth enabled, and people will use these for bot designing, for all sorts of radio controlled or whatever, because it's a perfect little controller that gives you analog, for acceleration, brake. You can brake, acceleration, and then movement. You get full movement, and then you've also got face buttons, all in one little controller. So this is used quite often in the hobby space. They've adapted this using Bluetooth, and you could recharge it with USB. And yeah, it's things like that. They will take devices that are abandoned and then kind of re-kit them and use them. But again, handheld gaming is kind of at an all-time high now because of this. Now, Sony, for example, today just launched their Sony, what are they calling it? The Sony Portal, I think is what. So this is an interesting thing. If you haven't seen this, or I think I showed the trailer on this thing a few days ago or a few weeks ago, and it is it's Sony's new handheld, but it's not, right? Because Sony doesn't want to go down the rabbit hole of handheld gaming anymore. They don't want to invest in big heavy hardware. They want to use their PS5. They want to use their main console, and also make it a handheld. Well, how do they do that? Well, you stream to it, right? So right now, streaming and stream gaming is kind of the thing. So they've decided to release a product that its entire purpose is to use Wi-Fi and stream your PS5 within your home, or if you're connected to Wi-Fi. You have to be connected to Wi-Fi. So technically, you could be away from home, if I remember correctly, but it has to be Wi-Fi since it doesn't have 5G or anything like that. But yeah, so Sony is releasing this thing. So again, it's not playing anything. It's a smartphone or it's a device with a custom operating system, no storage on it, and they took a DualSense controller and pretty much just like glued it to the sides. And it's a safe device. It's like 200 and change. I would say it's not an emulator because it has no real silicon. It has just enough to run whatever little mini operating system is used to remote into your PlayStation, but it has no storage. It doesn't even have Bluetooth. Let me put that out there. Sony went proprietary and made it so that if you want to use wireless headphones, you have to use their new PlayStation Link headphones or wired headphones. And they don't even have those headphones out. So if you want wireless headphones right now, you can't. The only way you could do it is maybe use like the Bluetooth adapter on the headphone jack. But my point is this device, it doesn't run anything. There's no operating system per se. It is just like a dummy terminal, I guess the best way to put it. If you're into computers, it is a screen with Wi-Fi or internet access and not really an operating system, but just an interface smart enough to just go, hey, I'm going to connect to this thing now. And that's it. That's all it can do. So you can't load anything on it. You can't download games to it. You can't take it with you and use it technically as a device outside of the home unless you're connected to Wi-Fi. And the only way it would be good is if your PlayStation at home is connected to fast internet so that it can send your signal out. But outside of that, it is just a device so that when you're not sitting in front of your couch, you can then stream your PlayStation 5 to it. That's its entire purpose. And they released it at what's the price on this thing? Let's see here. I think it's 200 or 240 or 2. No, how much is this thing? What is the price on this thing right now? Of course, Amazon is all like resellers, right? So let's compare the prices here. What is the price of this thing? Yeah, it's $199. It's $200. So so if you pull it up like on Best Buy, here we go. It is a PlayStation portable remote, $199. And I mean, it's essentially they cut a DualSense in half, gave you two halves of an actual PlayStation 5 controller, so you don't lose that tactile memory feel, and then a screen in the middle. And you could already technically do this with an Android device in a DualSense. You've already got devices like the what is it called, Backbone, which is PlayStation actually certified. So you can get the PlayStation Edition for $99. And you can download the PS remote play, plug it into your device, your smartphone, give you tactical, and then do the same thing. So it's essentially just Sony's brand of this thing. It is a device that remotely connects to your own console. Cool. But it's $200 for just it's a piece of glass with a controller. So if you don't own a smartphone, then I guess it's okay. But if you own a smartphone, you could technically just pick up one of these for $99 and do the same thing. So, that's kind of where we're at there. If you really want to play PlayStation 5 at home and you don't spend the money, you could do that. But again, now Sony is technically in the handheld market again, right? See, I'm weird. I started handheld gaming with the original black and white brick Game Boy. Yep, the DMG 101. However, I specifically bought the OLED Switch to be able to cast on my TV. It's almost too small otherwise. But on the other hand, I have no issues with my phone. Point being, I think I'd rather use a PS5 with my TV in lieu of taking it on the go. And that's perfectly okay. But there seems to be, there is a market for this, or at least Sony thinks there is, and they're kind of going in at a very low buy-in, right? So they're the buy-in to this entire new ecosystem is your smartphone strapped to a controller. Boom, I can now stream my game, or buy $200 device that does the exact same thing from your own home, from your own couch. But again, this is leading me further down that this is the newest device that just came out. But within this week alone, right, we had an announcement of another device and it's a device that already was out. And I've talked about it on the show before, and that is the Valve Steam Deck. All right. So the Valve Steam Deck is kind of the new player, right? The new player in this entire thing. So let's back up a little bit. So we've got console makers, we've got Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo. Those are the three major console makers, console game, three big houses in the house of console gaming. But you still got PC. PC exists. And as a matter of fact, some people would agree that PC is probably better than all of them because most of the time you could either emulate or play all of the consoles in some way, shape, or fashion, unless they're exclusives. But Sony is losing so much money in their development cycle. Games that used to cost a couple million now cost multi-million, and the return, they need more money. So what are they doing is now you're getting PlayStation exclusives released on Steam, which is unheard of at one point. But in this modern generation now, games that came out on PS4 and PS5 are now being ported over to PC. So as a PC gamer with enough money, because again, the buy-in for PC gaming is a little more, that's kind of where we're at here, is if you want to get a good PC for gaming, you are going to spend minimum of $500, $600, $700. I would say more in the $700 range to get a decent graphics card and a decent CPU, GPU combo to be able to play and enjoy modern titles without any concessions. Sort of, right? So this is where the Steam Deck comes into play. And the Steam Deck, which I've shown before, it is Valve. Valve is the company that makes Steam the marketplace for PC gaming, right? Okay. So they decided to make their own handheld, their own console per se, and they gave it a console environment. It is a handheld PC. It is running an AMD Ryzen or a custom Ryzen chip. It's got memory. It's got a hard drive or an SSD in it. It's got an SD card slot. It is a screen and a controller with trackpads and a touch screen and all of that. And it is running a custom operating system. It is running Linux with their custom Steam OS. And you can download Steam games that you already purchased on a marketplace that you already own if you own a PC, and play your games on a piece of hardware that finally is strong enough to play. As in, you have enough battery to take a PC game that might have been maybe only a PC exclusive and play handheld away from home. And that's cool. I bought one. I enjoy it. Not only do I enjoy it, it might be one of my favorite devices to date. It is such a treat to have because there are, as someone that goes to the, one of my favorite things to do when I'm at PAX is I love talking to developers. And I love talking to small independent developers, teams that are 1 to 2 people. It's 2 individuals in a basement making a video game. And they sometimes have a vision or a game that is 100% original. And then you go to these conventions and they're running this duct taped game on a PC, with dev software, plugged in with a USB controller, or usually it's an Xbox controller because they're native to PC. And you're playing this game that might not be out on any other console for years, because putting a game on a console costs money. It requires you to either buy a development kit or talk to a publisher or whatever the case may be. It's not as easy to port your game to the big 3. Now, it's gotten better over the years. Nintendo will allow you to use a normal Switch as a development console if you talk to them, and there's ways to do that. And Microsoft allows you to turn any Xbox into a development kit, including the fact that it is kind of a Windows environment, so you can use a Windows machine to port it over. And Sony's a little different. Sony requires an actual development kit from Sony. So that in mind, these small development studios sometimes don't port their game to big consoles. So then how do you play it? Well, you have to then sit on your computer and download it from Steam or whatever and play it with a mouse and keyboard or plug a computer. You're sitting at a desk and playing. But how do you have a console? Well, you could technically plug a PC up to a TV maybe and do it that way. And that's been always a thing. That hasn't not been a thing for years. I mean, you could plug but it's usually, the environment is usually not the same. Well, Steam has something called big box mode, which kind of gives you a full TV interface. Well, that was kind of an experiment for them because that's what they use for their interface for this handheld, the Steam OS. And this console that they released is good. Not only is it good, it is gotten better and better with every small little software update, listening to feedback. So this week, they announced a new version. And this is no different than the iteration of the Switch, from the regular Switch, or the Switch from the regular version 1 Switch to the Switch Lite to the Switch OLED. This is now a 2-year refresh. And this second year refresh, it is a device that it in the heart of it isn't any different. It does have a some small upgrades. So let's talk about that real quick, because I'm kind of leading into this all of this, and it's kind of a long, drawn out conversation, but that's kind of how the show goes, right? So the Steam Deck is popular. It is a valid marketplace. It is a thriving marketplace, and the Steam Deck is probably the most popular piece of handheld PC gaming that we have ever seen, with a thriving marketplace that constantly has deals and has sales, and they listen, and that's what's good. So one of the bigger problems of the original Steam Deck was that when it shipped at a price, which wasn't bad. It was actually pretty good for what you were getting, and it had a LCD, and it was a 720p LCD, and it really didn't have a high quality LCD. The battery life was actually pretty low, and it only shipped, the entry level shipped with 64 gigs. But the nice part is Valve was very friendly at the fact that you could upgrade it yourself. They had it was using standard parts, and they even allowed you to do self repairs. And so I bought the entry level one at the time, and I upgraded my own solid state drive, and I've got a 1 terabyte in there, and you can put an SD card in there and whatever. But the point is they have now dropped the price of their original, which this one here's the spec. So now their 256 model is now $399 with an LCD, but their new model is now their kind of mid-range model, and that is their OLED model. And they've basically gave you the same resolution, but with an HDR OLED display. So the display has now been upgraded infinitely better. You now have more battery life, or you have a 50 watt hour battery. So you're now getting more, and it says, which is interesting, is the range is 2 to 8 to 3 to 12, and 2 hours to 3 hours is like when you're playing something like Cyberpunk. Like you turn on Cyberpunk and crank the power and play that on battery, you're only going to get 2 to 3 hours, at maybe an hour and a half max, because games like that require lots of power. But you are playing Cyberpunk, or you're playing the newest Call of Duty, or you're playing the newest AAA title handheld. That's cool. I mean, that is a win-win. You don't see that very often in this kind of space. And so the Steam Deck is allowing these developers to make to make these games available in a handheld environment, or PC games, to a market that probably can't afford a full PC. So at the price of $399, you can join like the PC gaming craze and play games. So that's really cool. So this is a neat thing that we're finally getting. We're getting an upgrade to that. But again, trendsetters, and kind of the whole purpose of like my topic for tonight is that we've got that. And then we've got other handhelds, right? So over the past few years, there has been a big boom in smaller emulation devices, right? So a good example is we had a few years ago, we had the Analog Pocket launch. So this is mine's got a skid on it, but the Analog Pocket is a FPGA handheld that's used to play Game Boy Advance and Game Boy games and Game Boy Color. It's got a Game Boy slot, but you can also add an adapter on here, and you can play Neo Geo Pocket games. You could play Game Gear games. You could play Sega Master System games. You could play TurboGrafx 16 games on here, because you could use an HU card adapter. It's a really neat device. Without going into the weeds of what FPGA gaming is, it's supposed to be cycle accurate hardware emulation, which allows it to be more feel to the original feeling. If you've ever played emulators, sometimes the emulators can either run too fast, or the music doesn't sound the same. But this is supposed to be more, and I don't want to use the words, but cycle accurate. But that's not correct, because, anywho. That's a long topic, but the point is FPGA is kind of boutique gaming in a way at this point, for boutique retro gaming, but it is a more authentic way to play games because you can actually play your actual cartridges and that sort of stuff. So this device is the most popular. And this is the original black model, and I've got a skin on it. And this year, Analog has released multiple versions of it, right? So we've had single runs we had a limited edition glow in the dark one. And then a few weeks back, we had limited edition transparent colored ones, which were inspired by like the Game Boy Color. And let's see here. Pull up their website here. Oh, nope. There we go. So Analog. So the Analog has released multiple consoles before. They've released FPGA-based consoles for the Super Nintendo and the NES and the Sega Genesis. So these are all versions of their consoles, and their Pocket is their latest one that's actually released. They've got another one kind of up and coming, but they released a glow-in-the-dark one and a see-through one. Well, next week they're announcing another edition, are available actually next week. I mean, this Friday. You'll be able to pre-order these colored editions. And again, they're popular. People want these, and these will sell out within hours. Not even an hour, within like minutes. All the colors will sell out, and they range at the $200 range, if I remember correctly. So if we go to store here, the $249 is what they're ranging at, and they're great devices. They're boutique in a way, but they are fantastic. See, they had transparent at one point and sold out. But these are the ones that they released, and then they had a glow in the dark one a few weeks ago, and then of course their black one, which is their normal color one. And they've also got adapter sets that you can buy, and yeah, this is more handheld gaming, but it's another way to play some of these older titles in your pocket. And Pocket Gaming is here. Pocket Gaming is still around. But now let's go back to the Steam Deck. So we've got this one coming out. We've got a pre-order for these coming out on Friday. We've got the PlayStation Portal now out so that you can play. So how does Xbox come into play? Because Valve is its own thing. So how does Xbox come into handheld gaming? Well, they don't have to really do much of anything, right? Because the Valve Steam Deck is a PC. Nothing is stopping you from loading Windows on it. So what did companies do? Companies like Asus and Lenovo, which just released their Legion Go, and a couple of other ones out there, released their own version of their Steam Deck, right? So here we are. This is the ROG Ally, and this is a handheld PC, just like the Steam Deck. The difference is this thing right here doesn't run a custom operating system. This thing runs full-blown Windows, and it's got a solid-state drive in there, and it's got an SD card, and it's got a full Xbox style layout, ABXY, dual analog sticks, a touch screen, and a battery and everything else. And sure enough, man, like it is a full-on Windows PC. You know, you boot it up and there you go, and it'll boot right into Windows. And it's a fast device. Like, we've got options, folks. Like, this is cool. This is pretty cool. There we go. We're booting right into Windows here. I will log in, and what's cool about this particular device, and it's got a fingerprint reader. So from there, you could just tap fingerprint, and there you go. You boot up, and it boots right into like this little interface. And there we are. It has, you can see Steam games on there, so I can play my Steam games. But again, because it's a Windows machine, you can do all sorts of things, right? So a good example is if I want to play Xbox, well, Xbox has got Game Pass, right? So if you've got a Game Pass membership, you can play Xbox games. So a good example here is that a lot of the games that get ported over to the Xbox are already PC day one. So if I want to play an Xbox game on my PC, all I would technically have to do is download the Xbox app on my PC and play it. So a good example here would be, let me share this window right here. So this is the Xbox Game Pass interface running on Windows. And if I want to play a game, I would play Starfield, you know, if I want to play Redfall, I could go, here's Game Pass. Let's go to all PC games here. And so all of these games are available to me to download for free, right? Because it's my membership. And yeah, if I, they add games all the time. So if I go to Game Pass and recently added, so they just recently added, here's the new Yakuza game, Like a Dragon Gaiden, the Mana Race. So if I want to install it, it is a PC game. So I just hit install. And there we go. So now I'm downloading and installing the newest that game. But again, this is a Windows handheld. So if I want to play it on here, I just open up my Xbox app on here and download it. And now I have a PC powerful enough to play AAA titles in your hand. I mean, like, is that something? I mean, does anyone see the advantage of this? Like, are we? Are there more people wanting more handheld gaming? I mean, I like it because I love all forms of gaming, right? From arcade to handheld to retro to modern to whatever. And so I like playing on multiple little devices. Again, other options for emulation. I've got this right here. This is the RGB 30 from Powkitty, and it's the latest little fun device that runs kind of a Linux operating system, and it can play emulation, dual, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, that sort of thing. And this thing is under $100, $80 max maybe. And this thing is an amazing little device with a one-to-one screen. I'm going to be showing another video on this soon enough. But again, we've got options, man. Like, we've got things like this right now that you can buy from Amazon. And depending on your price range, we have ways to play. Is handheld gaming a thing? Like, does everyone want to play that? Yeah, I mean, so here's the thing, right? So like, this device right here runs Windows, so I can technically install the PlayStation Remote Play app, which is there is a Windows version of it. Install it here and stream my PlayStation 5 with this. So now I have PlayStation 5 as a handheld. I've got Xbox as a handheld. I don't have Switch, technically. I mean, there are ways to get Switch to run on here. I mean, why am I being out there? Of course you can. There's emulation out there that already runs Switch, and you can play Switch games on here without much trouble. As a matter of fact, I won't even lie here. I'm in the middle of playing Tears of the Kingdom on here right now. So this handheld is kind of a cool thing, and it has become my go-to devices at the moment to kind of pick up and go. It can play from any emulator that's out there, any handheld, any type of thing. There is a way to play it on this device. And I guess the conversation is more along the lines of like, is this kind of where we're going for this gaming? I'll now speak as someone that's in their 40s, right? I work, 8 to 5. I've got kids. I don't always have all the time in the world to sit down and like play tons of games, but I do have like micro moments in time. Like sometimes I've got an hour between dinner, after I get off of work and dinner, or I pick up my kids or my kids want to do something and they're watching a movie in the living room, and I want to sit down and play a game. And instead of coming into my office or whatever, I want to just like lay on the couch. So I could put on my headphones and turn this thing on and sit down and play. Or let's say, for example, there's a game that I can't, like, this doesn't have the horsepower to play, right? Well, since this is running Steam, I have my powerful desktop PC on the network. I can just stream the game from my PC to this thing, right? So like, I've got so many options with this kind of device, and we're getting more and more devices like this, folks. Like this one came out over the summer, a little after this one, like July, I think is when this one was released. And we just, last week, we just released, Lenovo released their competitor to it, and I will show that one. So again, another handheld. So here they are. And again, these things aren't cheap, folks. Like, these are the price of a small laptop. But when you look at what you can do with it, they're kind of Swiss Army knives of gaming. And it's interesting to me that I kind of think the price is pretty low, honestly. So like, look, here we go. Here's the Legion Go. It is $699. That's pretty pricey. I mean, the Ally is not that much. You can find it for way cheaper than that. And what's interesting about this, and there's a lot of videos out there right now, the Ally versus this, the Legion Go and the Ally both have the same CPU, same memory. The Legion Go has a little bit of a bigger screen, higher resolution. The controllers on the Legion Go actually undock, kind of like a switch, so that you can pop them off and you use them like a switch. So let's just show this video here. You can pop them off, prop it up like a little tablet, and there you go. Have a switch kind of experience. You can kind of pull back and play a console game with, kind of lay back. It's got a trackpad. You see, there you go. You got the trackpad, but then you turn on FPS mode and it has like this little puck, and then it becomes a mouse. So it's a pretty neat device all on its own. So that's pretty cool right there, that we've got so many options there. But this also gives you one more thing, right? Because if I wanted to play a first-person shooter with a mouse and keyboard, I would have to actually have a mouse with me on this one. And the Legion Go has the mouse already built in. So again, that's kind of like, is it worth it? Do you like that functionality? Well, you're going to pay a little extra for it, but that you have this one device now that can do it. The Legion Go and this, both horsepower-wise, can run the same exact games. The screen on this is a little smaller than the Legion Go, but the Legion Go, I think, is 8-inch screen. But yeah, we now have the three big handheld PCs are the Steam Deck, the ROG Ally, and the Legion Go. And both of these three are kind of this whole new like environment of gaming that it's kind of exciting, because you've now taken PC gaming and you've untethered it. You've removed it from the like weird PC gaming culture of like mouse and keyboard, and you're like in a cave, and you can play kind of in that other hip, cool method of like sitting on your couch, or you're at a cafe or whatever. You take it on a plane, and you're not pulling out a gaming laptop. You pull out your handheld like a switch. People would think, if you were sitting there, on a plane and you're playing this, they would think you're playing on a Switch or some sort of handheld, because when you look at the layout of this and this, you'll see that the layout is fairly similar, right? Like, outside of the D-pad being in a separate place, you've got, here's a device that is a handheld made by Nintendo and a handheld made by Asus. And both of these devices are handhelds in a way, right? So it's just pretty cool. And the nice part about this, of course, is it runs with full-blown Windows. This could be your laptop or a desktop replacement. Let's say you don't have a desktop at home. Well, you could just plug this into a dock, plug a monitor and keyboard, and open Office, whatever, and do some work and check your email and do whatever else, because it is a PC. It is running Windows. I mean, if I want to go to the desktop, you go here, go to desktop, and there we go. We've got a full-on desktop. I want to open up, Notepad or whatever. Let's open up Notepad. There we go. We've got Notepad right there. You want to open up Word, you can do that. And so that's kind of cool. It is a multifunctional device, and usually devices that can do so much aren't usually very good at one thing. But I think we've come full circle on this, where handheld gaming needed to be this because we thought this was too kiddie, and now we're right back here to handheld gaming, full-blown PC gaming on a laptop. This is basically a pocket laptop, and that's cool. That's cool. We now have options. So I think we're only going to get better. These devices will come out with a second and third gen. I'm sure by March of next year, there will be an ROG Ally 2, and we'll have a Steam Deck 2 in maybe a year or so, now that they just did a refresh. The Steam Deck is going to take things a little different, because they are not worried about the power, more so that their console-like environment where they run the operating system, and kind of like one of the downsides of the Steam Deck is that not every game can be played on it, right? Only because if it doesn't run Windows, then you can't install it. A good example is if you want to play a game like Fortnite, one of the most popular games, you really can't do it. I mean, you can. There are workarounds. You have to kind of like finagle it, but because the launcher and the Epic Store and all of that only works within Windows. If you try to install it in Linux, sometimes they detects it as a cheat device, and so it kicks you out. There have been multiple instances of individuals playing like games like Call of Duty on the newest one, and it kicks them out, thinking that, or it bans their account because it thinks that they're cheating, because they're having to run kind of like a layer of compatibility to get the Windows version to run on Linux. And so it's an exciting time for handheld gaming. It's an exciting time for PC gaming. It's making PC gaming kind of become front and center. It's making it become the first development point, and then everything else kind of trickles down because of devices like this. People are buying these things as opposed to buying a console. I mean, if you were to buy a new console right now and you really want to play the most games, this might be the best way to go, because if you want, there's all sorts of way to play emulation, so all your old consoles can be played on here. And then you want to play the newest PC games that usually get ported onto normal systems. So if you want to play Baldur's Gate 3, you can play it on this. You want to play the newest Call of Duty, you can play it on this. It just came out. I'm not saying you can play the Switch on it. You can. That requires more work, but you could technically do that with your pirate hat on or whatever, or your legal backups. You could play it that way. And eventually, if you want to play Spider-Man 2 on this, you could, because you could play Spider-Man 1 right now. You can buy it on Steam and play it. You want to play Death Stranding, which is a Sony game. It's on here. You want to play Uncharted. You want to play all of those are you could download them from Steam because they have eventually been ported over. You can play Call of Duty, God of War, the first God of War. God of War Ragnarok hasn't been ported yet. Horizon Zero Dawn is on here. So there's a lot of PC games that are Sony exclusives that finally, can be played on here. So this is kind of giving you this this really cool multi-use device for the first time, and I'm wondering how long it's going to be before other companies realize that. And I don't know, like it's just exciting because you've got a device here that can do so much for the price of one of the consoles. But with this one device, I can play many of the consoles. So yeah, I mean, what do you guys think? Oh, Manu, I always have to come in. Yes. You like your big deck. So yeah, is anyone interested in the new Steam Deck? I mean, the Steam Deck is pretty much the easiest form right now. It is the most refined out of all of them. Tomorrow, the pre-orders go live. If you're interested in that, they're going to go live tomorrow. If you've got a Steam account, go check it out. I mean, that's a pretty good price point to come in at. With the Legion Go and the ROG Ally and the Steam Deck, it's exciting. I won't lie, I do feel a little FOMO. I want the Steam Deck OLED, but I've already got a normal Steam Deck, and so and I've already got it modded all the heck and back. So like a lot of the stuff that this is already addressing, I can already do on mine. There's even a mod for you to add Wi-Fi 6 onto the original Steam Deck. So yeah, there's a way to do that. So Rose, so the entry level is 400, right? So the 550 gives you the OLED gives you half a gig. But again, that's I mean, you're talking about a device that has an OLED screen. It's got the 512 gig hard drive space, but because let's say for example, you don't really care, like you don't matter about the OLED display. This one and this one have the same speed. They're the same CPU. This one's got a smaller nanometer. It's just a newer revision of it, but clock to clock speed, memory, and all of that. These two are the exact same. This one just has a better battery. This one has an older battery, and it's the older revision of it. But they both play the same games. There's no advantage outside of the prettier screen. But let's say, for example, you wanted to go the $400 route. Well, what happens if you want to upgrade yourself? Because that only comes at $256. Well, let's say you wanted to buy a 1 terabyte SSD for it. Well, there's only 8 screws on the back. You unscrew, pop out the back, and install your own SSD, and that is totally an option, and that will only cost you as low as $77. For $77, you can buy a 1 terabyte. You see here, compatible with Steam Deck, 1 terabyte and VME, and you just drop that in, and it's as easy as just unscrewing the back, popping off, plugging it in, and putting it into Restore, and you're back up and running again. $74. And look, here's $69. Compatible with Steam Deck, $64. And there's different price ranges because of speed, but on all honesty, like it doesn't really matter. The Steam Deck is limited to like a certain speed, and you're not going to feel the difference. If you wanted to go even higher, there are more expensive routes, right? So that you could go for like a 2 terabyte, and those are going to be a little bit more, but they're like 150. So for 150, is you can buy a Micron 2 terabyte, and you've now got 2 terabyte handheld. I mean, I know, right? There you go. So I mean, options, but like this is a way, and that also means that if you wanted to, you don't even need to upgrade it because they do have SD cards slots on them. So the games work just fine. SteamOS has been optimized. You can go pick up a 512 or a 1 terabyte SD card, right? And those are, within the price range without you having to do any technical aspect. $83, or a good popular one that everyone likes to get is the where is it? 1 terabyte micro SD. This one, the Silicon Power one. It's actually really good. Got well reviews, and it's only $55. And for that one, you just plug it in, and so that one would give you 1 terabyte plus the 512 or the 256 that you have built into your device, and it plays the games just fine on there. Like the loading, people have done benchmarks, and the loading from the internal to the ST is not very much. So there are options. That's a really cool way to add functionality and game installs to it. Manu, you asked what mods. I mean, there are tons of them, man. Like, I mean, there's not all of them are for the lighthearted, of course, but with services people doing out there, you can send your Steam Deck to do certain things. I'll pull up one, for example. Let's say you wanted to get more memory. You wanted to upgrade from 16 to 32 gigabyte on your Steam Deck. So there's a guy that does it out there, and tutorials online. And sure enough, in a particular individual that shows a video on here is named DOS Dude, and here he goes. He's got running Windows 11, and he's got 16 gigs on here. And by going through the process of soldering on new memory chips, which again, the pads are there for you to add them, you could just replace the memory. And sure enough, after he flashes the BIOS to support it, he does the flashing, does a quick install. He's now at the 32 gigs. Same thing with the Wi-Fi. If you wanted to add, Wi-Fi 6E, Wi-Fi 6E, you can do that. Here's an individual that did the same thing as well. If you wanted to add that, there is a specific module you can buy, and you basically just go in and solder one in there, and it is available. So I couldn't wait for the Steam Deck, so I made my own. And so sure enough, he basically takes the wireless module off of this device and basically solders it onto here. And it's not hard. I mean, it is hard for the normal individual, but like there are people that'll do this for you, quick services. And they basically install it, and sure enough, they've already modded everything here, and you've got a Steam Deck with Wi-Fi 6E and 32 gigs of memory. So people are doing this kind of thing with their devices, and that's what's really cool about this community is the PC gamers will find a way to upgrade the devices, but yet it's also just enough for someone that might not be a PC gamer to jump in and take advantage of the Steam Deck, the Steam sales, the Steam ecosystem, the Windows PC ecosystem. And so, yeah, I mean, I've already updated this one, right? Like without me going into much detail, I've got a 2 terabyte on this one. And so 2 terabytes of space on here, plus my 1 terabyte SD card. And I've got 3 terabytes in my pocket. I toss it in my backpack, and I can take it with me. And I've got, whatever I want to play on this thing. If I want to have a little portable keyboard and mouse, I could take it with me and use it as a gaming laptop. There we go. So those are options. That's where we are. The handheld gaming market is alive and well and thriving in 2023, and it's only going to get deeper with PlayStation Portal and Xbox not really throwing their hat but more along the lines of knowing that other people are making devices that run their own operating system, Windows operating system, Windows, Microsoft 11, Windows 11 here. You can download the Xbox app and download the newest Xbox game, or you can stream. If the game isn't on PC and it's just on console, they give you the option to stream directly to your Xbox, kind of PlayStation does. Or Game Pass can stream when you're outside of the home through Wi-Fi. You could just stream onto their cloud services. It's just kind of multiple things that you can do. Nintendo still doesn't have any streaming option, but I guarantee you we're going to get something like that maybe in the next revision of the Switch. But yeah, that's where we're at. Folks, I'm going to make a video soon. I'm in the middle of a process. Besides going live, I'm in the process of talking about handheld gaming, right? We've got little things like this, like the Miu Mini. We've got the ROG, the Pow Kitty. We've got the Pow Kitty RGB 30, which is these two great little devices are still in my backpack and will always like be with me. These are awesome, and I'll talk about them in another video. You've got the Switch, man, and we've also got things like modding your Switch that can do all sorts of things. And I'm not going to get into too much in detail on that, but look forward to that. There's in this little box right here, there is a fun little device. A fun little device that might live in one of my Switch soon. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, I mean, folks, that's kind of the nature of the show. I like doing little deep dives on that kind of stuff, and this is more of a talking head video more than anything. But I'm gonna try to dive more into specific topics on that, make more videos on that, and yeah, we're trailing the end of the year soon. I've got maybe a host lined up soon to kind of come in and be my maybe permanent co-host. We'll see. Stay tuned for that. And that will allow me to kind of stay on track and make more content every week. I missed last week because I was so busy, but I'm here today, and I will hopefully be here next week, and hopefully I have more content coming soon. But folks, thank you so much for joining me on your Wednesday night. It is 10 o'clock here Central, hour and 15 minutes. I appreciate it so much. You joining and spending your time. I appreciate your roles. Thank you so much for being a subscriber to the show. It makes me happy that there's someone out there that wants to come on here once a week to talk and hang out. And for all the other individuals that I see you in chat, I see more than 11 people right now, or 12 people that have come in and out through different services that are watching the show. At least at one time. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you for watching the video. If you want to see more topics, you want to see more about this thing, you want to see more about this, you want to talk about handheld gaming, or maybe you're looking for a Christmas gift for someone that's into like retro handheld gaming or old gaming in general, and they're not into new modern gaming, and you want to pick one of these devices up for a stocking stuffer, or maybe just a really cool device, because once you buy these things to someone and they see that they could play Nintendo or Super Nintendo, they can play Genesis games on here. Once you give them one of these, they're going to it will blow their mind. Like, this is cool. So thank you so much, folks. Again, thank you for joining me. Be kind. Another episode in the can. Bye, everyone.